a simple man making his way through the galaxy.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another review here on Carbonite Convos. We can't thank you guys enough for joining us, and we just finished watching episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett, arguably one of the most anticipated episodes in this entire series, and
it did not
immediately
disappoint.
following, it did not disappoint. It completely lived up to the hype. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure to go watch that first because this will have spoilers. But if you have watched it, also make sure to check out our reaction because everything that happened in that episode was freaking wild, and you got to see, how we took it in. But thank you for joining us again. I'm your host, Funko Stud. You can check me out at Instagram and Twitter at that name. And I'm joined, like always, by Alec Porterfield, aka Wall Crawler Pops. Alec, let's try to go in order. I know it's going to be hard because a lot happened, but let's hear your immediate thought.
So first thing out of the shoot, I did not expect to get this much outside of the Boba storyline development.
Yeah.
Like I figured last week was like, okay, we got like an hour's worth of Mando. This show is about Boba Fett. Like let's focus on him, yada yada. But that's obviously not how this episode went. I am a huge fan of how this episode went. Start to finish, loved every second of it. So let's go ahead and just dive into like the very first thing that we get, and that's obviously Mando going to find Grogu and running into Art. Oh, true. Okay, yeah, true that.
Cobb Vanth.
So we got Cobb Vanth back.
Not a lot to say about it though. The Pikes are running spice through Mos Pelgo, now called Freetown. And I guess my biggest question is, what's in the box?
What's in the box?
Yeah, like my immediate reaction, as was yours, is it's got to be a lightsaber in there because it doesn't, unless that sand-looking stuff is spice.
My guess is a lightsaber or a blaster of some sort, because why would it be inside of sand and in such a fancy-looking box? No, that looks like something very nice to be kept in. It's something special is in there.
Yes, the Pike soldier said that it was worth more than the town, which the town doesn't seem to be worth a lot for starters, but that kind of gives an inkling at what might be in the box. So personally, I think it's a lightsaber, as do you. So unfortunately, we didn't get that answer yet, but I believe we still will. Now, moving on to what you were talking about right before that.
Yeah, so it's Mando is on his way to find the small child and runs into R2-D2. And I couldn't believe that right away because as we're going through the episode, we're like, no way we're going to run into the next cameo, which we'll talk about here in a second. I'm like, okay, we're going to get R2. R2's going to send him away, say, hey, you shouldn't go see him. But, fast forward a few minutes later and we get the man himself, Luke Skywalker. The deep fake looked incredible.
Oh, yeah, it looked awesome.
And Luke and Grogu are sitting on the mountaintop.
Even before then, I think it's incredible that we're seeing Luke's Jedi Academy being built. It's sad the way we know it ends,
right? But
it's awesome that we're going to see such a deep part of Star Wars lore, because that's a big story in the extended universe and Legends. So I think it's really awesome that we're seeing that be built, and most likely we're going to see it play out. We, like you mentioned, we go to them there having a forced conversation by the water with the frogs, and then we get a flashback of Order 66.
That, in my opinion, has been the coolest point of view of any interpretation of Order 66. And I think it's a toss-up between that and the scenes of Fallen Order.
Yeah,
that gives it the best perspective, I think.
Yeah. Star Wars Theory is crapping his pants right now because that's what he said he wants from the Kenobi series, which if they're giving it to us now, I think we could definitely see it again.
Yeah, I really, dude, I know like the timeline doesn't really match up, but I really feel like a lot of the stuff in Boba is going to lead into Kenobi. And specifically, one thing that I did see was the explanation of how this Naboo starfighter got to Tatooine. And supposedly, the rumor is that in the Kenobi series, Obi-Wan goes to Naboo to investigate things that have to do with Palpatine and uses the starfighter to go back to Tatooine and leaves it there and ultimately ends up in Din's possession.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be really cool. And I don't think it's, that far out of the question. It looks pretty beat up.
It was pretty
obviously.
beat up. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, when we were watching that scene, part of me was thinking that we might see just like a shadow of Anakin or something.
Just like a little hint, like callback, little
like
gesture,
the blue
like maybe his,
like the blue saber coming from the other side. I think the coolest thing to happen next though was Ahsoka showing up. I did not expect that.
No,
I
and
did not.
It brings up the question, and they've had to talk about it since then. Is they even mentioned it? Is the conversation between the two about Anakin, and Ahsoka makes the point, "Oh, you're so much like your father." That was incredible, man.
Was
like
awesome.
That was the perfect amount. I think that was the perfect thing that she could have said that let us know that they've talked about it before, but not too deep where it wasted a lot of time. I feel like that's something we could get into later, but I love that they gestured at it.
I know, right? And from every time I've seen people talk about the eventual meeting between Ahsoka and Luke, it's always like, how does Anakin play into that conversation? So clearly, like you've said, they've talked about it before, but just the fact that she compares him to Anakin is incredible. And the fact that they can talk about Anakin without it being about Vader. Luke brought him back to the light, and it can be a positive conversation now about Anakin Skywalker as a Jedi. And I thought that was absolutely incredible. Just everything that happened in this episode up until that point alone was just
it could have been its own thing, and it could have ended right there, and we would have been like, this was great. Like, but then we fast forward a few minutes later and we're actually getting into Din understanding more that he can't see him.
I know.
And I can't imagine how tough it was for him to say, you know what, I'm not going to go up there and talk to him. I'm going to go and let him do his thing. He even said it himself. He goes, I came all this way, but I can't do it. And I think that just shows how much he cares for him, man.
Exactly. And he knows what's best for him. And that's to be with Luke and Ahsoka. It's unfortunate that she's leaving. But, she has to find Ezra. She's got to go find Ezra. So we are going to see this story play out a lot. So that's a very interesting part. And I'll get to some of my theories after we go through the entire episode. After this, we go back to Tatooine. We see the meetup of the Power Rangers, Chrysanthemum, Boba Fett,
Power Rangers,
Mando. Nothing crazy happens in that scene. We just see them kind of assemble.
Yeah.
And then we see Mando go to Cobb Vanth, ask him to fight. Personally, I think he will.
I agree.
There's no way he doesn't, because Mando said, I didn't think you would be one to stand down to bullies. And then we get the stranger from the desert, Cad Bane himself, which
I think he looked great.
You did? I did. I think he looked a little too light blue, but I'm gonna chop that up to him being on Tatooine and maybe
being dusty.
Dusty stuff like that.
Maybe it was a little bit, but
a little bit.
I did not expect him to look like that, to be honest, with the teeth and the eyes. Like, however,
looks like he gained some weight.
It's tough because it's look at how we reacted when we saw Ahsoka at first.
Yeah,
in live action, we were like, oh, that looks just like off. Something's off about it. But it's going from animated to live action, so it's not gonna be the same.
No,
I personally think it looks good. I think it looks good, and I think it looks realistic to what it would be in the Star Wars universe.
Exactly. Same voice. It's from what it sounds like. I didn't look at the credits. What was the extra guy who was giving Mando a little bit of a problem? What was his
He was
sheriff?
just like he was a deputy.
Deputy.
He was a
Deputy got fried, which we knew was going to happen.
Well, he was mouthing off, and
yeah, he knew to kill that guy, but only injure the marshal to let the town know that they mean business.
send a message.
So exactly.
Well,
So
especially after that, after Cobb Vanth got shot, he's definitely going to fight with Boba's squad.
The interesting part is that Cad Bane knew that he had armor, that he had Boba's armor.
So he's been there for a while.
Yes. So that,
and it's interesting. It was interesting hearing Cad Bane's perspective on Boba.
I was just about to say that. Yes, because
that's wild.
He's not wrong. He did work for the Empire. He was a cold-blooded killer. But he's not anymore. That's not who Boba Fett is. But I can see how that would kind of affect his reputation, knowing that he worked for Vader, that he worked for the Emperor. That could come back to bite him. I don't think it's going to in this case, but they're assembling a team. I think Cobb Vanth is going to join it with ease now, and we're going to see an awesome team up for sure. So now we have to look at where does it go beyond here, because Grogu has an incredible choice, being he chooses the Mandalorian or he chooses being a Jedi. He can choose that awesome little armor, or he can choose Yoda's lightsaber.
I'm just confused why he can't do both, because obviously you can't have attachments, okay? But if he takes the chain link, I don't think that's necessarily attaching him to Din. Din said, as a foundling, he has the right to this, right?
But
once a foundling, always a foundling, right?
But not for a Jedi. Like,
why not though?
That's why Ahsoka said, like, it's because a Jedi forgoes anything. It doesn't I think foundlings, Mandalorians, that's like families and tribes. When you become a Jedi, your family's in the past, your tribe is in the past, your future is, the path of the Force. And I can see why Luke made him make that choice, because it's almost like he has to detach himself from Din, as much as that sucks for us to see. And I think that I don't think it's going to permanently be this way. I think that at some point, kind of like that quote that we saw of Master Grogu, where he's saying, "No, child, it is the way." When he's, very old, I think that Grogu might be the first one in a line of Jedi where you can have attachment, but you don't fear loss. Because it's clear from the Jedi and the Force that we've seen is that they didn't do everything the right way. They were blinded by their arrogance. And I think Luke is kind of the same way in some aspects. So maybe Grogu is that first one to be able to break those chains and be able to have, the best of both worlds.
God, man, it just sucks because we want him to be a Jedi, but we want him to be with Din.
I know.
Them two together is it's the most dynamic of duos. You know what I'm saying?
It brought Star Wars fans together. And speaking of that, it's like the one thing I'm not looking forward to is the upcoming week of more complaining that we didn't see a lot of Boba Fett. But I was thinking, when you think about the book of Boba Fett in The Mandalorian, I think, when we look at what The Mandalorian did, it pretty much set up Mando to be a complete badass, to show us history of the Mandalorians, and it set Grogu up to go with Luke to be a Jedi. That's what that story did. But I think the book of Boba Fett, that's a book. That is, I think, what we're seeing play out with the Pike Syndicate, with Tatooine, with all this, it's much bigger than we think. So I think that the book of Boba Fett, although it doesn't seem too substantial right now, and we haven't seen Boba a lot, I think that the book of Boba Fett is a very important story in the galaxy that goes far beyond Boba, because you're going to bring in characters like Mando, like Cobb Vanth, maybe Han Solo, Ahsoka. Like, it will bring these aspects in, but it's almost on a completely different, not timeline. That's not what I'm saying at all.
It's
But
on a different level.
it's a story within itself. So you have things going on in the galaxy everywhere. But you have on Tatooine this growing syndicate, this growing crime syndicate, and Boba Fett has to kind of manage that. And this is almost a fight between good and evil again. And you think eventually, what can each side do? When you think of this going to the top level, how big can this get? Because the Pike Syndicate is huge. Can this eventually get to the level where we're seeing a mini war, where we have Jedi and not so much Sith, but dark Force users, where we have Luke Skywalker, Ahsoka, Grogu helping Boba Fett and Tatooine? Because I think it's too convenient that this is all going on Tatooine, and we have another story going on with Luke Skywalker,
Right.
and we have Obi-Wan Kenobi coming up. Obviously, Obi-Wan is before all this, but I think it could all lead to something very big. I don't know what it is yet. I'd have to put a lot more thought into it, but I don't think it's out of the question for down the line, the book of Boba Fett to continue, Luke and Grogu's story continue, and maybe that's how Grogu and Din meet again, is this all culminating into some big war or battle, which obviously the Pikes would need. If you're bringing in Ahsoka and Luke, they would need someone much better than
Some
Cad
heavy
Bane.
hitters.
They would need something, but I don't think it's out of the question for it all to mesh up even more if it's already doing it now.
Yeah, man. These shows are running wild, and there's endless amount of options of things they can do to tie them all together. It has to be so much easier with shows because of the consistency that you can get them out, rather than in theater, mass audience
2 years
settings.
apart.
2 years apart, we can wait 4 months, and we're going to get more development of the story.
Yeah.
So we can make things more confusing here, because you're going to get answers here, and it's just a great equation.
It is. No, I think saying it's a great equation, I think that's a great way to put it. And I know we're going to see people that were upset because this is the book of Boba Fett and we're not getting a lot of Boba, but I think it will come. It will definitely come. He's assembling the team. He's the head guy. He's the father. He's the godfather right now. It will come. I think people just don't know how to be patient, but we will be happy with the end product of Boba Fett. We will. They would not disrespect Boba Fett. They wouldn't bring him back to life to have, yes, they wouldn't bring him back to life to have him die again and leave his character an embarrassment again. So that I fully trust where they're going. Is it slow on the Boba Fett personal front? Yes, but it will develop. I truly believe that. But incredible episode. What do you rate this out of 10?
So I think this is the best episode of Boba so far, with last week being number 2 behind that. Nothing's ever a 10. Nothing's a 10. It's impossible to ever be a 10, right?
Oh, it's a 10.
So no, because
I have many 10s,
if it's a 10, nothing can ever be better than a 10. So I'm gonna give this an 8.2 out of 10.
8.2.
Dave Portnoy score.
When I see scores, this was a 10 out of 10 for me because it left me completely satisfied. I couldn't have asked for anything else. And, if episode 7 is better, then, my 10s, my expectations will continue to raise. So I expect a lot more moving forward, and I expect my scale to have to change for them. It's going to have to be a lot to happen to get a 10 in the future, because that's a 10 for me, man. I loved it.
It was great.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts before we let the people go?
No, man. Great episode. I will definitely be rewatching this one. This will be
Sure.
one to go down in the record book. So
Oh yeah.
I am completely happy with it.
Definitely. And guys, we can't thank you enough for tuning in. Again, don't forget to go check out our reaction. The link will be in the description. So we can't tell you how much we appreciate just experiencing this show with all of you guys. So thank you very much. But until the next video, I know we have the reaction and the review coming out today. We have episode 61 of the Carbonite Convos podcast coming out tomorrow. And then the following day, we have our final part in our Spider-Man Funko Pop concept list. So we have 3 days of videos. So definitely check them all out. But until then, may the force be with you.
I'm a simple man making his way through the galaxy.